Welcome to the Project Endure podcast, the place where we talk about life, endurance, persistence, perspective, and so much more. I'm Joe Rinaldi, and I'll be your host. Let's jump in. Before we get started, let me ask you a question. Have you ever noticed that what you wear has the power to change how you feel? Project Endure apparel is designed to remind you that easy won't make you stronger, and that growth is an uncomfortable choice that we all have the privilege to make every day. Look good, feel good, and perform good. Head to the link in the show notes to shop Project Endure apparel and keep on doing hard things. Now, let's get to the episode. Welcome back to the Project Endure podcast, episode 111. We have myself, Joe Rinaldi, and we have a very, very, very special guest in Denver, Colorado. Surprise to me, Jordan Quinn. Jordan, what's going on, man?
What's up, dude? That was an awesome introduction. Super happy to be here.
I am so happy to be here with you. I say that was a surprise to me because the last time we spoke, you were in Seattle. And I am so used to seeing your background on Zoom from our time working together. And your background's totally different. And you said, hey, I was in Seattle. I came to Colorado for a wedding and then I never left. And so before we dive into all that, why don't you introduce yourself to the people listening who don't know who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name self-evidently now is Jordan. And I had the privilege and pleasure of working with Joe in a coaching capacity for a while, probably 6, 7, 8 months, something like that. And I mean, the whole like coming back to Denver and then not just returning to my life in Seattle is, I think, in large part due to some of the work and conversations that we had. And maybe we'll get to that today, maybe we won't. But I don't know. I think kind of how I came to be here on this episode and what I'm excited to talk about is like I got dealt a really dope cosmic lottery ticket in a lot of senses. And then some that were just like a lot shittier. And it took me a while and I'm not done. Still trying to figure out like how to make sense of that and make things feel better more often than not. And, in regards to the hands we get dealt. But not an entrepreneur, not any of the like buzzwordy kinds of things. I work for a big corporate conglomerate and train jujitsu and try to have fun with my friends and my family and my girlfriend and stuff. Not a lot.
Girlfriend and stuff. That is,
yeah, man. So much has changed.
So, all right, we're gonna catch up on everything. To start this off, I actually have a quote. I usually let things warm up before I throw in a quote, and this quote is actually a paragraph. It's rather long, but I want to put it out there, and then I would love to hear your thoughts, and that can get us started. So,
yeah, it sounds great.
This quote is from Hal Elrod, who said, "Those who only do what they feel like don't do much. To be successful at anything, you must take action even when you don't feel like it, knowing it is the action itself that will produce the motivation you need to follow through. When you value your integrity at the highest level, living in alignment with your word, and following through with your commitments, no matter what, there are no limits to what you can create for your life. However, when you make excuses, justify doing what is easiest, and choose the path of least resistance, you will live a life of mediocrity, frustration, and regret. Live with integrity as if your life depended on it, because it does." So a lot to process, but I share this because I think a lot of the conversations we had centered around figuring out how to take action, what kind of action to take, when things were just confusing, maybe motivation wasn't there. And I saw you continually put one foot in front of the other, trying to figure it out, doing hard things. And that was one of the many reasons I loved our time together, and one of the many reasons I'm looking forward to this. So I don't know, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, a lot. Well, that's a great quote. I think the thing that sticks out most is the latter half, right? That bit about like seeking the easy way out and kind of seeking the comforts and like what happens as a result of that. And that's how I spent a lot of my life, especially like childhood into early adulthood. I think I was good at a lot of things and I expected to be good at a lot of things. And then I just kind of like didn't do anything that I wasn't immediately good at. And it took me a pretty long time to get okay with the idea of like one choosing to do things because I want to do them and like figuring out what that looks like. And then knowing I want to do something, at least for me, is nowhere near enough, right? Then it becomes at least at the beginning, a battle of like just showing up. And I think that something else that comes to mind for me with that quote is just like momentum is such a powerful thing in either direction, right? Like uh, uh, another mentor of mine used to talk about this in the context of like every morning you wake up at the top of the hill and you're standing up there with a big boulder. And on one side of the hill is like pain and suffering and shittiness and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. The other side is like pretty cool things, like a lot better things. And whichever side of the hill you start that boulder rolling down, it's going to be a Sisyphean task to try and get around it and push it back up and go the other way. Right. And so I think there's so much power in intentionality and in momentum in kind of steering things in the way that we want to go. But I think it's also progressively harder to even know where one wants to go in today's world. Like we just get battered with so many options that may or may not be at all relevant to like what like one person actually wants out of anything. So I don't know, a bunch of stuff comes to mind from that one, but that's a dope quote.
Yeah. Yeah. Listening to you talk brings back so many memories because I never told you this, but after our coaching calls where I was the quote unquote coach, you were the quote unquote client, I would actually set time aside and go over our conversation and reflect on some of the things that you said because they were so deep and profound. And I know this is going to be a conversation where people are going to be pausing, taking notes, going back, re-listening. And so I figured we would just dive right into the deep stuff. And I would lead with the question, when you look back at your life to this point, what is the hardest thing or circumstance that you've ever had to handle that you did not get to choose for yourself?
Oh, that's such a good question. So there's two things that come to mind. And they're both related. They're both medically induced for me. So when I was 17 months old, I don't know how much this impacted future me in reality, but it kind of paints a bigger picture. When I was 17 months old, I was doing all the things a toddler's supposed to do. I would stand up and walk and talk. And then one day I couldn't do any of that anymore. I would stand up and fall over and I couldn't talk. And my parents were like, well, that's not good. So they took me to the hospital and I had a cancerous brain tumor. It was a junior pilocytic astrocytoma, which means something to somebody. But it was on my cerebellum, which is why I stopped being able to like walk and talk and stuff, right? That's part of your brain that controls balance. So I had 2 surgeries to remove that. They went in once. They're like, we think we got it all. They didn't. So they went back in again. Luckily, they did finally get everything out. And I've been healthy in that regard ever since. I didn't start talking again until I was like 4. Largely because I think I was just upset with the world. As I think someone whose head has been chopped open at toddler age is wont to do. But after that, like I mostly turned out pretty normal. I think, if anything, just too smart for my own good. My parents used to always joke that they like crossed the wires in there at some point, which is why maybe where all the profoundness comes from sometimes. But then the second health related thing, and this happened in adulthood, which I think impacted me a lot more directly. I used to be a competitive bodybuilder. I was fairly high level at that, and was knocking on the door of going professional at the time. And I remember I don't know, like one day I felt like I kind of had the flu. Like it just felt super nauseous and kind of dizzy and weird. And then that went away. And then 2 days later, I was going up a flight of stairs, and like I was a big dude, I was a beefy dude, but going up a flight of stairs left me like I had to hold myself up. I was like gasping for air. And shortly after that is when the chest pain started. And then because I was 22 and fucking stupid, I was like, well, I'm a bodybuilder. I still have to go to the gym. So I went to go still try and lift weights. And God bless, like I had the wherewithal to get like 2 sets in and like, I maybe not, right? But I got home, tried to, sleep it off. And I woke up in the middle of the night with like every heart attack symptom in the book. Like I had left arm pain. It felt like someone was sitting on my chest. I had pain in my neck. I couldn't breathe. Um, and so I went to the hospital and they're like, we think you're having a heart attack, which at 22 is like not what you want to hear. Um, and what it ended up being was acute viral myocarditis, which is a bunch of word salad to basically mean my heart had the flu. And it was like so inflamed it couldn't work anymore. And so my ejection fraction, which is like how much blood exits the heart on any given pump, right, is, or the chambers or whatever, was 25%. And at 22 years old, it should be more like 55 to 65%. So my heart was at like a third capacity. And the doctor was like throwing around words like heart transplant and never exercise again, and all this stuff. And I got really lucky, in myriad ways that once the infection cleared, there was no like structural damage to my heart. And so the integrity there remained. And a few months later, I was like pretty much back to normal physically, but mentally took years. As someone who like really enjoys being vigorous with my body, even still, and like took a lot of pride and was like really tightly coupled to that identity of being a bodybuilder at the time. I spent the vast majority of every day like worried about the next time my body was going to turn on me. And I just didn't feel safe in like the only thing that we're really supposed to ever feel safe in, right? And that sucks. I wouldn't recommend it as an experience. But yeah, I obviously didn't get to choose any of that. One could argue that like I wasn't free of responsibility in the sense that like bodybuilding is kind of a dangerous sport and like things can happen because of what you choose to do. But as far as like the extremity of the occasion, like not my fault. And everything that has happened after is up to me. And I think for a long time, I just tried to like beat life into submission after that. I was like, well, I'm going to show the doctors wrong and all of science wrong. And I'm just going to like, doesn't matter, raw dog life until I win. And the harder I tried, the worse it got. Because I wasn't like respecting the fact that a really scary thing happened. Also, shortly after this, I was engaged and that engagement ended. So like, take physical heart pain with like very real emotional like heart pain, and it was a super tumultuous period. And yeah, I guess I'll pause the monologue there. But that was the event, at least.
So after that happens and you enter this phase of grappling with, what is my identity now that it is maybe it seems like it's being taken from me. What does it look to process that? What does that look and feel like to process that loss of identity and that shift in identity for you?
Yeah, I mean, so stage one was denial for like a super long time. And same guy I mentioned before with the boulder analogy used to say this thing that was like, you can pretend that your feelings aren't there all you want. But they're just doing like push-ups in the parking lot while you're in the grocery store, getting jacked out of their fucking mind to punch you in the face as soon as you walk out. So like every day, right, I'm like trying my darndest to hold on to some semblance of like understanding of who I was. And that went through phases, right? I think it went from like, I tried to keep bodybuilding briefly after that. Super stupid. Wouldn't recommend that. Luckily everything turned out okay, but like And then after that, it was it's also it was kind of fortuitous timing in the sense that after all of that happened, I wasn't working. I was like trying to figure out what to do with my life after. And that's how I got into software engineering. And that's kind of like what set me down the path that I'm on now. So at least as far as like grappling with identity and shifting that, it took a really long time, a tremendously long time. I would actually say it's probably only been the last, so that was 6 years ago, give or take. I would say it's probably only been the last like 3 to 6 months that I feel like truly at peace with who I am now. Um, so yeah, there was no quick fix to that. I tried everything. I tried psychedelics, meditation, therapy, just every form of exercise one can do. Like, like personal development books, seminars, courses, whatever, like coaches, all the things. And I think in hindsight, my approach that whole time was something about me is broken and I have to try as hard as I can to fix it. And I think that's just I think that's probably why a lot of people get into this like realm of things like self-help and personal development and et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's like, if that's the base of the pyramid, you're not going to build a very strong, like whatever building pyramid. It can't be about I'm broken, fix me. At least not for me. Maybe for someone else that'll work, but I think it was about learning how to accept the fact that there's things I can't control, that I'll never be able to control, and that there's things that I can't fix, and I also don't have to. And like, what can I make out of the situation that I have been dealt? It's like I really can't change the like base quality. It's like if you I don't know, if you played like Skyrim or something as a kid, you like build your character, right? And you have like certain skills and certain whatever race and traits and et cetera, et cetera. You can't change that until you start the game over. And like maybe we get to start the game over at some point. I don't know. But yeah, I just stopped trying so hard to change, I guess. And the more I stopped trying to change, the more I was able to start listening to like who I actually wanted to be. And that took time too, for sure. Because like when who you actually are, and like I mean this in the least self-deprecating way possible, but like when who you actually are is just like a giant fucking nerd. And I've spent my entire life trying to be cool and like fit in with the cool kids. That was hard, just kind of like by nature. But yeah, man. I think that's all I got there.
What do you think it is about the world around us and the thoughts of others that affect us so much, when I think we could all agree just being our authentic selves is likely the best route for each and every one of us. And yet it's so hard to let go of what we think other people think of us. Why do you think that that is, either for all of us or just for
Yeah,
you?
that's such a good question. I heard recently somebody say, "What other people think about me is none of my business," and I think that's awesome. I wish that we could all spend more time believing that to be true. But why is that? I, as a blanket statement, think that we're trying too hard to explain things away with like a very simplistic scientific explanation, or like evolutionary explanation. So like what I mean by that is now everything is like, well, it's dopamine's fault. Your whole life is fucked because dopamine. And I'm like, well, maybe, but I think that diminishes the experience of being a person if you like just bring it down to molecules. So my point, why I bring that up, is I think that there's an easy explain away answer that is like, evolutionarily speaking, if we were outcast and people didn't like us, we starved to death and got eaten by a tiger or something. which like I for sure I think there's some element of that programming still left in us. We're still running, we're like running very old hardware in a new software world, right? But why is that? I think that fundamentally, how do I word this? I think it's hard to be who we actually are, because if it were easy, life would be pretty boring.
Mm.
I think that there is something to this whole experience that's like designed for learning, um, whatever that is and whatever comes after. I have no idea. Um, but if you just woke up on day one and it's like, I know exactly who I'm going to be and I'll be that person forever, it'd be like, that's stupid. It'd be so dumb. It'd be so boring. It would hurt probably less, maybe, or just differently. But yeah, I think it's an opportunity to learn like who we actually are, and then I think maybe more importantly than just learning it, it's an opportunity to like practice it, because it's really easy. I think most people probably actually know who they are on paper. Like that's pretty clear. But then when you look around you and you see, I think social media it has played a huge part of it. I think just the overwhelming connectivity to people all the time. Well, fake connectivity, right? We're more connected than we've ever been to like ideas of things, but we're less connected than we've ever been to the reality of other people. And I think that's part of it. And I think my last thought on this is that uh, intimacy and vulnerability are terrifying, and it is really, really, really hard to just like walk up to somebody and be like, this is me. Please like me, and hope for the best, especially if you like deeply care about this person. Um, and also because like people are sometimes fucked up and will hurt you no matter what you do.
Mm.
Um, and so I think at some point, all of us have been rejected in one way, shape, or form for who we actually are. And that informs the decision to like steer us towards, well, I have to be somebody else then, to like hopefully mitigate against that potential danger of rejection in the future. But yeah, so a lot of potential contributing factors there, but I think that's everything that comes to mind.
Yeah. One thing about rejection that's been interesting to me that I've been reflecting on as of late
Mm,
is that a lot of times when someone says no to who we are, it's
mm,
more of a reflection of who that person is and how they see the world and what
mm,
they want in their lives. And in many ways, it doesn't speak to the rightness or wrongness of who we are. It is simply an incompatibility based on how they
yeah.
see the world. And I
Mm,
think that's freeing in a lot of ways. And yet at the same time, emotionally, it might not make it easier in the moment.
yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to add that. And then I
Mm,
wanted to ask you because you've experienced a lot of pain throughout life
mm,
so far in various forms, as we all have. Would
mm,
you trade or change any of that pain if there was a way to get to this point without it?
mm. I would love to say yes. I really would, but no. Um, I think it's easier to say that now that I'm like less in the pain. But no, I don't think I would. I spent, and I think a lot of people that get into the like self-helpy kind of sphere become this way. But it's like I have to put a positive spin on everything, and everything is working for me. And if I just gratitude journal every day, nothing can hurt me. Um, and like it's just not true. Uh, Life hurts, and some of the best parts about life are the fact that it hurts. Or at least maybe put differently, the best things in life can only be had when we're willing to get hurt by them. Um, whether that's like deeply connected relationships or passion projects or our career or goals or whatever. Like, if you're kind of lukewarm about it and a quarter of the way in, it can't really hurt you that bad, but you're probably also not going to do very much about it. Um, and choose your own adventure. mitigate risk if that's what you want to do. But I tried that for a really long time, and it didn't seem to help very much.
Yeah, there's a great Haruki Murakami quote, who I know
Mm.
you're familiar with, and he said, "Despite your best efforts, people are going to be hurt when it's time for them to be hurt."
Mm.
And
God, yeah,
yeah, he's good, right?
yeah, he's so good.
I mean,
Uh,
what does that mean to you?
yeah, just very quick asterisk for anyone who's not familiar with Haruki Murakami. Incredible author, but you also have to be willing to sift through the fact that like 60% of his books are just talking about girls' boobs. Um, and then he'll say stuff like this, right? It's just this unbelievably profound sentiment about life. And then it's like also like, oh, she had beautiful ears and massive tits. It's like, oh, okay, man, sweet. Um, but anyway, read his books, but also be willing to just like throw away a lot of it. Um, what does that mean to me? People, I don't, I just don't think there's a cop out, man. Like, I don't think there's a way to avoid it. And I really do think that trying to prevent pain for ourselves or for others uh, is robbing people of opportunity. Now, slight clarifying point there, like do the best you can to love the people you care about and like take care of them and support them, but you can't put them in a bubble, and life is going to life, and they're going to get hurt in the ways that whatever powers that be have decided they need to get hurt. And it doesn't mean I want that to happen to people. I really wish that I was not around when they created the rules of the game. If I were, I probably would have advocated for slightly less pain. But yeah, I just don't think there's any way around it. And I think being willing to lean into that sooner rather than later, as the king of resisting leaning into that, I think I would have gotten over the worst of it probably a lot sooner.
I think a lot of what we all want in life is on the other side of hurt and the other side of
Mm.
hard. And as much as we can understand that, it doesn't make it any easier. And as we transition to the next question, almost perfectly on cue. I mean, I did not tell you to say any of that. What is the hardest thing that you have ever done on purpose in your life, and why did you choose to do that thing?
That's a really good question. Um, yeah, it's kind of abstract and meta, which, if you know me, is like the only place I exist in a lot of the time. Um, just like putting myself back out there and what I mean by that is like I so I'll briefly explain how I came back to be living in Denver because I think it's related. Um, I've been trying to move to Japan for the last like 4 years, and COVID happened, and then life happened, and then I actually was on track. I like had my last interview, I got accepted, everything was like ready to go, and I flew back to Colorado to officiate my best friend's wedding, and there was this other dude there named H. H goes by one of two things, either Ocho or H, for the studio in which Saturday Night Live was recorded. Uh, and if you ask H where he lives, he'll say my mail or my trash gets collected in Pittsburgh. Uh, but he's a very strange man, H is. But anyway, we were at a bar after the ceremony, and we were talking about Japan and moving, and um, he said something to me that like really kind of rocked me to my core, and it was like, man, I can't tell you what to do, but something I see in you is you're always looking at these ideas of things like that. Oh, somewhere like literally across the earth, there will be like a perfect set of circumstances with perfect people, and everything will be better. And he's like, maybe, but there's also a group of people sitting here right in front of you who are real, and they love you and they care about you. And I know what I would pick if I were you. Um, and I was like, well, fuck H. Uh, and that's kind of how this came to be. And so I guess what I'm getting at is like I I gave up on, at least for now. Uh, I've given up on almost every like shiny goal I had ever set for myself. Whether that was like I wanted to try and be a food YouTuber at some point, and like there's nothing wrong with that. It's food YouTube's fucking awesome. But like wanted to be a food YouTuber. I wanted to move to Japan. I wanted to build a business. Like live in this catastrophically expensive high rise in Seattle, and like et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All these big goals that I had um, were kind of designed around getting me further away from people because of how badly I wanted to avoid being hurt and how badly I wanted to avoid being seen for who I really am. And so the hardest thing I've ever chosen to do, I think, is clearly what I'm doing is not working because I am miserable. Even I had and still have like all the things people want to have, right? Like success, money, life that looks very pretty. And the more I leaned into that, the worse it got. And so just choosing to be like, man, I just want to hang out with my friends. I just want to like do things that I enjoy because I enjoy doing them. And that doesn't mean my life is devoid of effort. I just am much more selective in the things that I effort towards and like why I try to. Um, and I'm trying every day to be better at accepting the fact that uh, there's a high likelihood I'm gonna be hurt by even the people I care about the most. Uh, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it.
In an effort to avoid being hurt by others, is there a part of you that's attempted to avoid hurting others as well? Is there or was there ever a fear around that for you, or was it more receiving the hurt?
Yeah, definitely that. I think that for me, a lot of my struggle was driven by, and still is, this. I call these things boss battles because I like video games. The like big scaries that keep coming back. Um, but I think that for me, I'm I was historically always concerned that like I was not enough for people, and that like I yeah would let them down or fail in some way, or that like if I wasn't doing enough, I wasn't worthy of being around them, kind of thing. So yeah, I think it was both. I think it was I don't want people to see who I really am because I don't think I'm good enough, and I don't want to hurt them by being a failure or doing something wrong or whatever. And then on the you know other side of the same coin, there was the like other people are scary, and probably will hurt me. So like just avoid all of it. Yeah.
So looking forward and thinking about opening yourself up to the possibility of being hurt, if, or maybe not if, when that happens, how would you like to respond to that in an ideal world?
Yeah.
What is an admirable way to respond to that for Jordan?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, I think it is. Um, admirable. I think that there's something to be said for like uh, being willing to look at something for the value it brought while you had it. And so what I mean by that is like, let's say in injury occurs and in my case, even you can't bodybuild anymore. Maybe you're a runner and you can't run anymore, or you lose someone important to you. Um, that loss does not, cannot, and will not ever erase the period of time that you had where it was accessible to you. And so I would hope that I would be one able to like hold on to those things and not let the pain color them in a way that makes me like resentful towards the time that I really enjoyed that. Um, and then I would hope that I would be willing uh, to accept that pain in stride and go back in for more. Because you can't hide from it. At least not that I found. So, and no, we just don't ever know. Like, it's really common. If people have ever used the Waking Up app, it's a great meditation app. But something he talks about a lot in there is like, you just don't ever know the last time you're going to do something. And it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to die, right? It doesn't have to be this like fatalistic. It's just like maybe one day you decide that you're over this thing that you've loved for your entire life and you just kind of don't do it. Or maybe a friend passes away or moves away. Or even if you think about stuff like, I don't know, the last time you ever were out like driving with your friends in high school, like till 1 a.m, doing nothing, right? Like there's all these little things that at some point it's going to be the last time you ever get to do it. And that sucks. It's like the worst part about being a person, I think, that things end. But if they didn't, there would also be no point, I think.
There's the profoundness I was alluding to. Yeah. So I have two thoughts. They're a bit different. So we'll take one at a time. Someone once asked me the question, would you rather only be able to listen to one song for the rest of your life on repeat? You can pick your favorite song, or you can listen to any song you want, but you can only listen to it once. And as soon as it's done, you can never listen to it again. Right.
Well,
What would you pick? I think so. And I'll give my answer after you go.
yeah. Yeah, I'm super curious. That's so as someone who like uses and abuses the same song or album into fucking oblivion, this is a really hard one for me. But as an anecdote, so my favorite band is The National, which if you've ever listened to them, they're very just sad, existentially draining music, but I think they do a great job of like getting to the crux of the biscuit often. And I promise this is related. They, as like a performance art piece, once performed the same song. It's called Sorrow. It's very fitting. For 7.5 hours straight. And I think it was on like take 96. The lead singer has like a full breakdown. He starts like sobbing on stage. He can't sing anymore. He has to walk off and like go hide in the back room. So I think that this is a roundabout way of saying I think maybe listening to only one song forever is probably a bad choice. So as terrible as it would be, because there's been so many songs that I have spent hours and hours and hours of my life using them as like the soundtrack to what I do. Yeah, I'd pick one and done, I think.
You and I are the same in many ways. And our taste of music might be a bit different on the surface. However, I as well use and abuse songs. I will listen, I'll find a song I like, I'll listen to it 1,000 times until I'm sick of it. And the best part about that, might I add, is you do that, you get so tired of it, and you let it breathe for a year, and then you come back to it, and it's amazing.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best feeling.
And part of what this decision is all about for me is that you would really have to savor that one time you get to listen to each and every one of those songs. And I think to your point of, you never know when the last time you get to do something is. Can we all be better at living life that way, where when we experience something, even if it's far from ideal, maybe it hurts, maybe it's not perfect, can we still enjoy it knowing that it might be the last time we get to do that thing? And I would also pick one and done for all those songs. So my second part, unrelated to the first part of that question, is actually on something you said to me in one of our conversations earlier this year, or I guess maybe last year. I don't know. Doesn't matter. You said grace for this week is making space and then just letting it be space. And you also
Mm,
said that the whole point of creating space is to have the space.
mm,
And I bring that up because I think a lot of us create space or attempt to create space just
mm.
to fill it again. And
Yeah.
I would love your thoughts on that,
Yep.
just conceptually, and then also maybe how you've been
Mm.
implementing that or experiencing that lately.
Yeah. This is so good. Implementing and experiencing lately, it's both. I think that there's been a pretty dramatic simplification in the number of things that I have in my life, so that the things that are left have a lot more space to breathe. Um, and so I think there's still there's a lot of active time, but it's less panicky. It's a lot more grounded and like desire rather than like, oh my God, I'm fighting fires. But anyway, yeah, I think that a lot of people, myself included, are like deeply uncomfortable with stillness. Um, and I think there's a myriad of reasons for why that is. Uh, but probably the most important reason in my mind for that is that like our brains are pretty scary and they're pretty loud. And if that space isn't filled, your brain, I promise you, will find a way to fill it. Um, and I think that's good. I think it's important to just like let our minds run kind of wild every now and again. And then hopefully as a result, like they quiet down at some point. But without space, I think it's really hard to ever get clear on what you want because you're just constantly running from one thing to the next without like really asking yourself if this even matters. Um, and I think that's how stuff like midlife crises actually happen, right? As you get 30 years down the road and you haven't blinked and you've just been doing life kind of rotely and robotically that whole time. So I think and you don't have to go on like a fucking 10-day water fast in nature to create space. Like, and I actually like, just as a blanket statement, whatever wellness thing you're into is probably stupid. Like I'm going to offend somebody by saying that. Don't at me. You can't at me. You won't be able to find me anywhere to do it. Um, but like, it doesn't have to be that extreme. Take 10 minutes to go sit at your favorite coffee shop and like not be on your phone. Take 5 minutes and go sit outside and like listen to birds instead of listening to music. Like, I don't know, just find little gaps. Our lives are all really demanding and we have a lot of responsibilities and a lot to do. Um, and I think that's a lot of reason why people don't try to create stillness is we've created this picture that it has to be this like big endeavor, uh, which is a lie, I think. Um, and this is one of the reasons I'm so fascinated with Japanese culture and like what I love about it is they largely get to the end of their workday and like they go have a beer with their friends and like they don't think about, oh geez, is this 233 calories of beer that I'm about to consume? Doesn't fit the macros. uh and they take this like huge long swig and then it's this massive like, oh, and there's so much indulgence in that like 5 second moment of sipping the beer. uh and I just don't think that we do that very often. And I think stillness can be that simple. um I think space can be that simple. Like just give things room to breathe, um, in whatever way that you can find time to do it in.
Room to breathe. Such simple words,
Mm,
yet so hard to give ourselves those things. And
yeah.
man, there's a ton I would love to dig into, and there's a lot I still want to get to. And so
Mm,
I have one more statement I want to throw your way before
mm,
we carry on with the next question. You once said to me that
mm,
Jordan is not a computer program. And it was in the context of thinking logically, if this, then that. And
mm,
it was surrounded by a bigger conversation around what faith looks like or what it looks like to have faith. And
mm.
what does faith mean to you? And why are you not a computer program? What does that mean as well?
Yeah. Man, we're going in the deep cuts of strange things Jordan has said. Um, what does faith mean to me? I think that faith is not that different than like the willingness to put yourself out there. Like it is, I have no idea what exists out there in the void. Uh, but I'm, you know what, gosh darn it, I'm going to try anyway. And just generally trusting that things will work out somehow. Maybe not even like, I don't even say that as like everything's, again, not everything's working for your good. Sometimes shit is going to blow. Um, and I think that's part of faith too, is being able to look at that and be like, well, this sucks, but it probably won't always. Um, and be willing to try again. And like, just, I don't know, I think trust that even if something goes poorly, there's a chance that it won't. And there's equal, if not more significant chance that it'll probably go pretty well. So I think that's faith. And I don't think faith has to be like if people prefer to bind it to religion or higher powers, like more power to you. I think that can be really useful. But I think it can be smaller. I think it like if you really think about the world. So let's for those of us who still have commutes to go to work every day. And let's say you live in downtown LA, just to exacerbate the example. The number of things that are actually going right on that drive is fucking insane. It's like incalculable, the number of things that are working all of the time, like conspiring to get you from point A to point B relatively safely. And so like I think that's faith too. We put tremendous faith in the fact that the world is largely going to exist tomorrow as it does today, and do the best we can in the face of that. So yeah, that's faith. And then as far as like Jordan is not a computer program. You can't control it's like being a person is not input equals output. Maybe a better example of this is like I I think eating is an easy topic for this, especially in like the fitness world, right? It's like if I control every variable and I have 200 grams of protein and 12 grams of fat or whatever, and you know, yada 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 yada, then I will be X% body fat at the end of this whole thing. It's like, well, yeah, you might, and then also your grandma might die tomorrow. And like I don't wish that on anybody, right? Or it's like you might get fired, or you might stub your toe, and not like I don't know, anything could happen. And if you're not allowing that possibility, and it's just like, well, no, I am actually it's 4:30, and at 4:30 I go to the gym and do legs. It doesn't matter that grandma died. I'll go to the funeral later. It's like, well, questionable life decisions all around. But like stuff is always going to be happening. We live like our lives are inherently complex, and we don't understand most of it. Try as we might. And so as much as I like speaking for myself and like why I'm not a computer program, I write software all day. Like for the most part, you try to break things down into linear logical chunks and then like follow that path. And then at the end, you like come out the other side, hopefully unscathed, and things work. But life doesn't work that way. You can't control every variable. And I think it also like, I don't know, a lot of the best experiences I've ever had have been really happy accidents that I could never have possibly planned for. And I think like being willing to like, and this is not full permission to just like fly by the seat of your pants and like not have any sort of routine or schedule or orientation in any which way. Like those things are all helpful, but you can't live and die by it either. At least if you want to have what to me is a fulfilling experience.
I would agree with that. And I would also add very quickly that faith could be as simple as, instead of fearing what can go wrong,
Mm,
see what can go right.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what if, that phrase, what if, that goes both
Mm,
ways, right? What if this goes wrong? What if this goes very, very well?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I think you're right. More often than not, when we put ourselves out there, when we take the risk, when we take the chance,
Mm,
when we're willing to be hurt, we realize that it might not have been as bad as we thought it would.
yeah.
Um, and so, Jordan, as
Mm,
we start to land this plane in about
mm,
a 10-minute window here, I've got two
yeah.
questions.
Yep.
The first is simple. When you hear the word endurance, what does that
Mm,
mean to you?
yeah. I think it is the ability to consistently work towards a thing, um, and hopefully for like progressively more sustainable periods of time. Fitness is such an obvious analogy for this, right? But it's like if you can run 3 miles to start, that is still endurance. Like you are sustaining effort over a like pretty significant period of time, all things considered. Even if you get up and go for a walk for 20 minutes, like that is endurance. Like you are enduring something. Um, so maybe that's a better phrase, is like it's just the ability to sustain and or tolerate a particular set of circumstances over a hopefully progressively longer period of time. Um, and the longer we can endure things for, I think typically the better off we are.
I would agree with that. And that was succinct, to the point, clear, and it resonated with me. And I know it
Mm.
resonated with somebody else out there. And Jordan, I have
Mm.
another quote. I'm going to hold this quote until after you answer this last question.
Okay.
But the last question I'm excited for, because you just have this depth
Mm.
of being that I think will speak very well to somebody who might not have heard what they needed to hear just yet. And I don't
Mm.
want to put this pressure on you. I just want you to
Yeah.
be you for this answer.
Mm.
Somebody out there is going through something.
Yeah.
Odds are everybody out there is going through something.
Mm.
And if somebody is in a dark place, they're not sure what to do, they don't know where to go, and they're
Mm.
just feeling down. And you get to speak to them right now in their ear, wherever they are, doing laundry,
Mm.
in the car, at the gym. What
Yeah.
would you say to that person?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think what I wanted to hear most during those times in my life, um, first and foremost, is just like you are the furthest thing from alone. And that is not to diminish whatever you're experiencing. Like life hurts sometimes and it's painful and it's hard to know which way to go. But I can all but guarantee that you are not the only person who has ever felt or will ever feel what you're feeling right now. Um, and as someone who like strongly considered no longer partaking in the whole life thing multiple times, um, there is nothing more worth it than seeing whatever you're experiencing through to the other side. And that doesn't have to look like success or a massive accomplishment or any of these things that we get told are the right way to live your life. Like, I think that you are probably doing significantly better and significantly more than you have ever given yourself credit for. And it's important to remember that. And it's important to remember there are things that will never be offered again in the same way that you can offer them. And I don't mean go fucking design your $1,500 offering for the world. Like, just go be you. And if no one's ever told you before, like, you is the greatest thing you could ever possibly be. Um, and it's not a project to work on or a thing to fix. It's just a state to be in, or at least try to be. Yeah, I think I'll call it there.
Jordan Quinn does not disappoint. That was beautiful. And
Thanks, man.
I'll share my quote, and the quote doesn't in any specific way tie into anything that we talked about today. And it kind of does, but I pre-selected this because I just wanted to share it with you because I thought you would appreciate it. It is from Orison Swett Martin, who said,
Okay.
obstacles are like wild animals. They are cowards, but they will bluff you if they can. If they see you are afraid of them, they are liable to spring upon you. But if you look them squarely in the eye, they will slink out of sight.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love that one. It's all paper tigers, man. Right? Like none of it's that real. So yeah, just I maybe counter to what a lot of people on this podcast often say, not because it's wrong. Like, also stop making things so fucking hard all the time. Like, whatever your big, scary thing that you're looking at is, it's probably not that big nor scary. And also, even if you get there by hate fucking your way there the whole time, you will not enjoy having made it to that place. I try not to guarantee anything. I will guarantee that much. So go, I don't know, go like do something dumb and have some fun with it. And then maybe whatever the scary thing is won't be so scary anymore after.
I love it, man. Well, on that note, Jordan, I appreciate you as always, more than I can express in words. And two, if somebody wants to reach out, follow along, just learn more about what made this conversation possible from your end in terms of Jordan becoming Jordan, where should they go to do that?
Good question. The only things you'll find at this point are old. I am pretty off the grid of any of these sorts of things. The most recent stuff, I have a blog that is Shonen Jordan, named after the popular manga publication Shonen Jump. It's SHOUNEN and then JORDAN. I haven't written anything on there, I think, since you and I were working together. So it's been a long time. But other than that, like maybe find other people to listen to and dig stuff up on, because there's people, pretty much everything I say is stolen from other people. So like there are better ways to spend your time. But I hope people got something out of listening to this one.
I know for a fact that they did, and just can't thank you enough, Jordan. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. It goes both ways, dude. Wouldn't be here without you.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Project Indoor podcast, go ahead and subscribe, leave a review on your platform of choice, and share this episode with a friend. It helps us get more conversations like this out to more people like you. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time. And one more thing. If you're looking for a community of people all striving to be better together, check out the Project Indoor Hard Things Club. The link is in the description below. We'd love to have you.